Welcome everyone to the Ask an Architect show. Here we are, episode 22. John Schippers is in the house. Thanks for joining us, John.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. You have a very unique pathway and a unique background that I don't think we've had on the show before. So I'm excited to get into it, but I don't want to be linear with this. Okay. I want to get to know you a little bit, but I want to make it fun and make it a little more casual. So let's just start out with some fun things. What are you doing right now for entertainment, for education? What kind of shows are you watching? What podcasts are you listening to? What books are on your bedside table right now?
Well, so funny, no books are on my bedside table, but many are on my iPhone via Audible. So I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. Yeah, the commute here in DC is just awful. Yep. So I kind of translated that into using it for learning. So I've been reading or listening to a lot of books about entrepreneurs. The last three that I've read were Phil Knight, CEO of
Shoe Dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
great book.
It's a good one.
Bruce Springsteen's autobiography, which
it's
is
on my list.
Yeah, and then Trevor Noah's book as well. So those were all great. And then for fun, I think the best audiobook I've ever listened to was The Martian. Fantastic
cool.
Performance. So,
cool.
Yeah.
The Shoe Dog's really good. If any of you all haven't read it, it's interesting because it only goes from what is it? It's like 1969 to 81, something like that. It's like the early stages of Nike.
Right before Michael Jordan, which I was really disappointed in that.
Me too.
I wanted Michael Jordan.
Yeah. I left it with a little something more I wanted from that book. But good nonetheless. Audible is also a great source. I use that as well. Let's talk about your career a little bit. You spent a majority of your education at the WAC, the Virginia Tech's Washington
so I spent graduate school.
Center, right?
Yeah, graduate school at WAC and undergraduate at University of Buffalo.
Okay. Wow. So are you from New York originally?
Yeah,
is that kind of
from New Rochelle, New York. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you're in there. What kind of things were you specializing in at the WAC? What kind of work was, or at least what was intriguing?
So what was so interesting about the WAC is that it's the emphasis was really put on craft and on hand drawing, and I'm a computer guy, so it really forced me to kind of adapt and to use the creativity that I really didn't know I had in school. So I did. I don't think I used a computer there for anything throughout my whole time studying there. Hand drawing everything, building models and physically as opposed to 3D. However, I was the computer lab graduate teaching assistant. So
I was going to say that's an ironic pathway given what you do now.
Yeah.
Did you know when you went to the WAC that that's what you kind of signed up for?
I did. Okay. I did. Yeah. So there was a bunch of fantastic faculty, but Marco Frascari was really the one of the driving forces. So I had read a lot of his text and seen a lot of his work, and he was really a big part of what drew me to the WAC. His work
And the reason I'm focusing on all this is because we haven't gotten to it yet, but essentially most of your career has been focused on design technology and helping architects implement design technology better in their practices, right? So before you got to where you are now, just going back a little bit, you spent some time at some pretty big firms. You were at RTKL for a while, EYP, and then Grunley Contracting, the builders, right? And through all those positions, were you always in design technology? Is that kind of the specialty that you kind of latched onto? No,
the beginning of RTKL, I was a designer.
So traditional practice.
Sure, and they were just picking up Revit. This was back in 2004.
Okay.
So I kind of took a liking to that, and after about a year, I started to travel to the other offices to train people in using Revit, and that's when I decided that this is probably the path that I was going to go. So after 4 years, I'd gotten all of the experience I needed. RTKL offered me the position to be the BIM manager, which was called at the time, and I jumped on it. And I said, this is great. This is what I want to do.
That's interesting. It's almost a natural progression, something that you fell into, and then I assume you found a passion for it.
I did.
It wasn't something that you came in there expecting to do, but then what is it about that you love so much? Is it the technology? Is it the teaching side? Taking it to the human level? What is it that makes it a career for you?
Well, I think initially I would say the technology, but really it comes down to the teaching and breaking it down for people to understand. I really love it when that light bulb goes off and I see someone get it. Yeah, that's what I really enjoy teaching. So I think that that's ultimately what it is. The technology is great, but it's really the human aspect to it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what separates, correct me if I'm wrong, but what separates the really good BIM managers and design technology specialists from just the technicians, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's the training. It's not just knowledge software. It's the ability to translate that knowledge to another human being.
Correct. Absolutely, yes.
So speaking about translating knowledge to human beings, you've also spent some time teaching at the WAC, right?
Correct.
So our audience are architecture students right now, wide variety, first years to fifth years to grad students. If someone's a first year or second year out there, what kinds of things should they be thinking about in terms of either class selection or software that they're trying to learn? What should they be focused on at that point in their educational careers?
Well, I think that a lot of students tend to pick up the tool that's the easiest for them, and that's SketchUp. I would say ditch SketchUp, really. I think focusing on
is it a crutch? Why is that?
Well, it's very simple, but it's good for the early stages of design, but there's really not a big payoff. I think a BIM tool, particularly Revit, it's so much more architectural. It requires you to think more about the design, about what you're doing architecturally, and when it comes time to documentation and cutting sections and really dissecting the building, it makes a lot more sense. So I see a lot of students relying on SketchUp, and I see a lot of firms relying on SketchUp too. And then when it comes time to documentation, they have to redo everything.
Sure.
So I think that BIM, and what we'll talk about maybe later, design computation, these are two really, really, really big hot topics in the industry.
Now, what about the progression as somebody gets on into the end of their educational careers, either fifth years or grad students? Is there anything new or hot or sexy out there that they should be experimenting with so that they come into a firm being on the cutting edge or being a subject matter expert in something the firm might not have?
Absolutely. I think design computation tools.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
Grasshopper is a plugin for Rhino, and Dynamo is a plugin for Revit. And what these do, well, at their simplest, they automate tedious tasks, right? That's how a lot of people are using them now. So the idea is you think about, if what you're doing can be done by a computer, it probably can be done better by a computer. So Dynamo allows you to program and parametrically study different design ideas in Revit. Okay. So I think that, and we're seeing that a lot. There are a lot of design computational specialists coming out of the woodworks now. So I would say that that's something that students should focus on. That's really the cutting edge. It's really early on in its infancy, and it's really changing the way that designers are designing and that way that we're going to be designing as a profession.
That's good. I think that's great information for our viewers and some value added for them right away. I mean, they can go straight to that, and those are tutorials, Dynamo, Grasshopper. Those are things that we try to provide at our conferences many times. So hopefully people get a chance to pick up on that. Okay, so let's say people go through school, they love the design technology aspect, they like that, they've kind of identified it as a potential career for them. What options are available for them outside of traditional practice? Maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing right now and other things that they could do with that skill set.
Sure, I think that well, the title of BIM manager is something that a lot of firms are implementing, but I think it's kind of morphed into a design technology manager because there's so much more to what we're doing than BIM. BIM is just one kind of sliver of it. The day-to-day, what I do a lot is a lot of training, a lot of working with people, but also identifying areas or workflows that can be augmented with technology and then implementing that. So Dynamo is a great example. If I see someone doing something 10, 15, 20 times, we can maybe write a script to do it. Or we can start to automate so that you can study a building's orientation really quickly and have the computer do it for you. So you can knock out studies that used to take days, you can knock them out now in minutes.
So would you say it's automation through customization? I mean, if you're writing scripts, then you obviously have the subject matter expertise to go in and create some type of customization, right?
Kind of. It's actually, it's a little misleading because when people see Dynamo, they think, oh, I don't know how to code, I can't do that. It's actually really simple. It's really simple. It's just a series of nodes, and the internet is amazing, and I would suggest that everyone be as resourceful as possible. You could find the answer to pretty much anything on this device that you carry in your pocket.
Yep.
So I think that's how I learned just about everything. I learned everything by Googling, by going on YouTube, by going to conferences, but also by watching the webcasts of these conferences. I mean, everything nowadays is recorded.
Yep.
So
that leads right into my next question. Would you say that your mode of continuing education, or the way that you stay a subject matter expert, is through internet tutorials and internet research of your own?
Absolutely.
As basic as that may sound, right?
It sounds so simple, but yes.
Yeah.
I go to maybe one conference a year. The ones that I don't go to, I catch afterwards. I catch them, via webcast. Everything is posted to YouTube. Googling. Community forums are also great. People are really, really, really looking to help others. And if you could take advantage of that, you could pretty much get anything accomplished that you need to. It's really amazing.
And this is essentially what you do for a living now, right? Yeah. So you have your own company, Adaptive Studio, right?
Yeah.
And so you're essentially providing, training, customizations, help with the automation, that type of thing?
Yeah, all of the above, and a lot of on-site support as well. So I'll just go into an office and I'll answer questions, almost kind of like a stump the chump kind of thing, where I'll just, one office that I'm working with, I have a calendar. I can go to different people's desks. They give me a problem and we work on a solution. I help them also kind of adapt the tools to their workflow. So not every firm does things the same. So I never want to say, we can't do that because Revit can't do that. That is a fail answer in my opinion. It's really, okay, well, this is the way you guys work. Here's how we can make it happen. So that's really what the focus is.
Well, if you have a business, essentially you are a solution provider. Correct. So the answer can never be, it can't do that.
Yeah.
It's your job to figure that out.
Absolutely.
So maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but what I'm hearing you say is that essentially you're taking your architect background and degree and license, and you're taking your software expertise you learned along the way, supplementing it with all of these things that are available on the net that anybody out there can go get, and basically creating a business around it.
That's right. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So let's talk about other businesses right now that are happening. Apps, startups, that whole startup world, super hot, sexy right now. As somebody who's kind of in the technology zone, arena, whatever you want to call it, what apps are you using right now? It doesn't have to be architecture, whatever it is, but what's really interesting to you?
Well, there are quite a few. Well, I think from a data management standpoint and communication standpoint, I use Slack.
Yep.
Slack is really great. It's just this open messaging platform. We have a DC AEC technology Slack group where just a bunch of people, anyone can join, and we post questions, people post answers. That's been fantastic. Trello, I use Trello for organizing my thoughts, for organizing just information and things about the business. I think actually, well, this is going to kind of put this into context, but Snapchat today just announced their World Lens, which is an augmented reality little add-on for Snapchat, which I think is really interesting. And I'm really excited about the idea of augmented reality. I think there's a huge potential there. The HoloLens, the Microsoft HoloLens, is really awesome. It's a little before its time. I think that maybe in the next couple of years we'll really see it start to take off. Virtual reality, that's more coming of age, using that quite a bit. I think every firm that I'm working with is using it to some degree. And there is
for walkthroughs and things like that.
Yeah, and there's a plugin for Revit. It's called Enscape. Fantastic little piece of software. What it does is it allows you to view your Revit model, walk through it in real time, as like if you're playing a video game. And you can hook up your HTC Vive or your Oculus Rift, and you can visualize in virtual reality. It's really amazing.
Let's go back a step to the augmented reality.
Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong here, because my interpretation is that could actually evolve into the next stage of BIM or a data-based design tool where you're actually walking around looking at buildings and seeing data associated with them. So you're expanding that database into whatever you're seeing somehow.
Yeah.
Is that
totally.
Is that an angle to it?
Oh, I think so. Where what you can see from the HoloLens, they're working with Trimble, who makes SketchUp, to you can put the HoloLens on and you can see what a space is going to look like. So you can identify coordination issues pretty quickly. But I think that's the logical next step. We're making these BIMs. I don't want to say BIM models because that's redundant. These BIMs with all this information, you can put this headset on and you can say, okay, well, I can look through this wall.
You
I
start
can
to
see the
it.
pipes. I can see you could almost see in X-ray mode. You can tap a button. You can see who installed it, when they installed it, what the information is, what the warranty information is. Oh, when was the last time that light bulb was replaced? All this stuff you can use augmented reality for.
That's fascinating. I can't wait to see where that goes. I think there's lots of different angles there. I think the walkthrough in virtual reality is certainly a natural, intuitive first step, but some of the augmented reality I think is even more fascinating.
Absolutely. I think there's a bigger potential there in augmented reality than virtual reality.
You mentioned Snapchat and social media. Do you see any advancements in social media, or what's really piquing your interest on the kind of the entertainment, social communication realm? You mentioned Slack, but what are you using for fun?
For fun, well,
do you have time for that these days?
I do, but funny enough, I don't actually use it so much for fun. I'm not really a social media guy. I use it for news, but I'm not like the kind of person that goes on social media and posts things.
So everything's business based. You're trying to supplement what your skill set.
And then during after hours, it's more kind of analog. Be it playing music, playing instruments, or playing chess, things like that.
That's fascinating. I find that more and more the people that I interview that are more tech based or technology based say something very similar, that they spend their off times completely analog or actually purposefully try to get away from tech in some way. Which is interesting to me. So John, this has all been fascinating. I think you really bring a unique perspective, like I said at the beginning. We'll wrap it up with just one question here. I think that really ties it all together. What is Raspberry Pi?
So Raspberry Pi is it's a little motherboard that you can program pretty much anything that you want to. It's like a little mini computer. So one way that I use it with my daughter is we put old video games on it, and we play old school video games. So you can get it on Amazon. It's really cheap. It's really simple to do. It's really awesome.
Raspberry Pi, check it out now. John, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks to all of you for watching. Please subscribe to the AIAS YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on the Ask an Architect Show.